We will be dealing with some of the basic questions related to tort law for enlightening our knowledge in the subject of law. So, without wasting any time, let's start with it. First question is, which of the following statements are correct? The statements are: first, in tort, the duties are imposed by law, whereas in contract, duties are undertaken by the parties themselves. Second statement, in tort, the duty is towards the world at large, but in contract, the duty is towards the specific individual or individuals. Statement 3. In tort, damage are liquidated, but in contract, the damages are unliquidated. Or statement number 4. In tort, a person may be liable for the wrongs committed by others also, but in contract, the liability governs the parties to the contract only. Select the correct answer using the code given below. The options are A. Only first, second and fourth statement are correct. B. Only first, second and third statement are correct. C. Only second and fourth statement is correct. Or D. Only first and fourth statement are correct. The correct answer to this question is option A, that is, the first, second and the fourth statement regarding the difference between tort and a contract is correct. The next question is, which of the following statements illustrates the principle of contributory negligence? The options are A. The plaintiff, by his own want of care, contributes to the damage caused by negligence or wrongful conduct of the defendant. B. To be the guilty of contributory negligence, the plaintiff should have acted like a prudent man. C. A person who comes to court must come with clean hands. Or D. The plaintiff's negligence means breach of duty towards defendant. The correct answer to this question is option A, that is, the plaintiff, by his own want of care, contributes to the damage caused by the negligence or the wrongful conduct of the defendant, illustrates the principle of contributory negligence. The next question is, for an action of nuisance, the following have been put up as defenses. Statement 1. The place is suitable for the purpose. Statement 2. It is for the benefit of the locality. Or statement 3. It is done under the statutory authority. Now select which of the defenses given above are correct. The options are A. All of them means first, second and third state defenses are correct. B. Only first defense is correct. C. The second and the third defenses are correct. Or D. Only third defense is correct. The correct answer to this question is option D, that is, only third defense. That means that it is done under the statutory authority is correct. The next question is, based on the principle that the consent is a good defense in a civil action for tort, but the act should be same for which consent was given. Now the facts given is that B was formally invited by A to his house. B, after sitting for some time in drawing room, moved to bedroom of house A. House A sued B for trespass. Now select the most apt option. The options are A. B has offended A by moving to the bedroom. B. B has interfered with the privacy of A. C. B has committed trespass as there was no consent of A for the entry in bedroom. Or D. B has committed to trespass as he entered the house with A's consent. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, B has committed trespass as there was no consent of A for the entry in the bedroom. The next question is, which one of the following is not an essential element in a suit for damages for malicious prosecution? The options are A. The plaintiff was prosecuted by the defendant. B. The proceedings terminated in favor of the defendant. C. The defendant acted maliciously and not with a mere intention of carrying the law into effect. Or D. The plaintiff suffered damage as a result of the prosecution. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, the proceeding terminated in favor of the defendant is not an essential element in a suit for damages for malicious prosecution. The next question is the Gluckstein Shrine Grammar School case is a leading case to explain which of the following legal maximum legal principle. The options are A. Volenti non fit injuria, B. Damnum sine injuria, C. Injuria non fit volenti, or D. Injuria sine damnum. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, the case is a leading example to explain the principle of damnum sine injuria. The next question is, under which of the following conditions the right to claim damages in tort would arise? The conditions are: first, under infringement of legal right; second, under legal damage; C. Third, any damage; or fourth, existence of a legal right. The options are A. First and second conditions only, B. First, second, and fourth conditions only, C. First, third, and fourth conditions, or D. Only second and fourth condition. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, under first, second, and fourth. That means the infringement of a legal right, legal damage, and existence of a legal right. The right to claim damages in tort would arise. The next question is, the requirement for fixing joint liability lies particularly on the confederation of parties because of which of the following? Options are A. Vicarious liability, B. Common intention, C. Deemed to be guilty, or D. Common object. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, common intention. The question is, match the incorrect entries. The options are A. Remoteness of damage was given in Rand versus Fletcher. B. Negligence was the issue in Denog versus Stevenson. C. The principle of injuria sine damnum was discussed in Ashby versus White. Or D. Damnum sine injuria was discussed in Gluckstein case. The correct answer to this question is option A, that is, remoteness of damage was not discussed in Renal versus Fletcher, and that it is a correct entry or a match. Next question is, the law of torts have developed mainly through which of the following? The options are A. Customs and precedents, B. All of the choices, C. Judicial decisions, or D. Enactments. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, by judicial decisions, law of tort has developed. The next question is, which of the following cases is an authority on a rescue case? An exemption to maxim volenti non fit injuria. The options are A. Hyannis versus Harwood, B. Baker versus Hopkins and Sons, C. Smith versus Baker, or D. Dan versus Hamilton. The correct answer to this question is option A, that means in the case Hyannis versus Harwood, an authority on rescue cases which has been described as an exception to the maxim volenti non fit injuria. The next question is a criteria or a situation based. The situation is, a rickshaw carrying 3 passengers was going on the correct side of the road when it was hit by a bus coming from the opposite direction on the wrong side of the road. The speed of the bus was very high, so much that after hitting the rickshaw, it also hit a motorbike coming from the same direction. from where the rickshaw was coming. In relation to this case, which of the statement is correct? The options are A. The motorbiker did not have a valid license at the time of the accident, which is an offence under the law, and therefore the motorbiker is not entitled to any compensation. B. The suit filed by the passengers deserved to be dismissed since the rickshaw was overloaded. C. The owner of the bus is liable to pay compensation to both passengers of the rickshaw and biker after deducting a sum proportionate to their contributory negligence. Or D. The owner of the bus is liable to pay compensation to both passengers of a rickshaw and biker without reducing the amount of compensation. The correct answer to this question is option D, that is, in the above case, the owner of the bus is liable to pay compensation to both passengers of rickshaw and biker without reducing the amount of compensation. The next question is, mark the correct answer for the statement. The statement is, when consequences of the wrongful action are foreseeable. The options are A. When the liability for damage is not too remote. B. When the liability is too remote. C. When there is no liability. Or D. When the liability for the consequence does not arise. The correct answer to this question is when liability for the damage is too remote. Then the consequences of wrongful action that can be foreseen arises. The last question is, the rule of absolute liability is subject to which of the following? Options are A. All the exceptions mentioned in the rule of Ryle versus Fletcher. B. None of the exceptions mentioned in the rule of Ryle versus Fletcher. C. All the exceptions mentioned in the rule of MC Mehta versus Union of India. Or D. Half of the exceptions mentioned in the rule of Ryle versus Fletcher. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, the rule of absolute liability is subject to none of the exceptions mentioned in the rule of Ryle versus Fletcher.